Hello and welcome to today's panel discussion on navigating supply chain challenges. The supply chain continues to face multiple challenges ranging from availability of raw materials and rare earth metals to geopolitical and environmental demands. What are the key practices manufacturers should adopt to mitigate production disruptions? I'm joined by three representatives from manufacturing companies today. To my extreme left, we have Rob Ogilvie from ICTC. Next to him, we have Don McCormick from Libra Industries. And to my immediate left, we have Michael Needham from Semi-Kinetics. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll get straight in with my first question. I'll give it to you, Rob, on the end there. How can manufacturers diversify their sourcing of critical raw materials, including rare earth metals, to reduce dependency on single regions or suppliers?
It's really just almost as simple as the question is. You've just got to diversify. You've got to find different avenues, different sources for all of your critical components because of our changing geopolitical environment. 2025 was very challenging, I think, probably for all of us, because from day to day, you didn't know what the price of your goods were going to be from which country.
Right.
So the more sources that you can develop and cultivate, and the more options you have to go to market to find those different components that you need, the better off you're just going to be.
So have you looked at different component suppliers in different geographies and looked at what their tariff rate might be? It might, say for example, if they're coming from Singapore, they're 10% tariff. If they're coming from another country, it might be higher, etc.
Right. And obviously a lot of that focus was on China, and a lot of components come out of China.
Right.
So yeah, we did have to not only work with different sources, but then also work with our distributors of those components, and work out some kind of arrangement where we weren't getting burdened with all the tariff. They were feeling some of that pain as well. We were trying to spread it among the supply chain so that not one of us was feeling that full burden.
Yeah. Don, what is your approach at Libra?
Yeah, it's really early engagement, and it reminds me a little bit of 2020. Where we didn't know where COVID was going to take us, and then after we got through a couple quarters, everybody realized they're going to have to start forecasting longer, more extended POs. Yeah. But when I think about what's going to happen or what's happening now, and I think it's going to go on for the next couple of years, it's really working also with engineering groups, manufacturers engineering groups with the OEM customer engineering groups, looking at life cycle analysis on BOMs and seeing where the vulnerability is, and do it now. If you haven't done it now, you got to do it now, and because there's a cost implication. There's also second sourcing, and you're right, components that are built in different parts of the world, like tantalum caps, where rare earth minerals are going to come into play, and then being able to have those second sources. And so it's not just the PMs and manufacturing working with the supply chain folks at OEMs. It's getting the two engineering departments engaged at the very front end and following it all the way through.
All the way through. Yeah, absolutely. And Michael, what is your approach at Semi-Kinetics?
I believe that also you're going to have to start looking at the tools that we're utilizing at the front end of the process. So not only during the engagement, the early involvement with engineering, but I think also during the quotation estimating phases, we need to start employing more tools that give many more options at the quote level. So when you're going through the entire bill of material and the build and life cycle and et cetera, using the tools and software to go out and find out how many alternates are available within that industry, that component line, providing the customers 3, 4, 5 options right at the front end so that you're not boxed in. I know we all still experience a brand new design coming into proposal phase, and you look at it and 20% of the BOM's obsolete already. So you have obsolescence, but you also have the point of whether or not those materials are available. I think now with as many tools are coming out at the front end, we need to exercise those software tools to to bring more options to the
Right.
table.
How much do you guys push back on the big box companies? You know, the DigiKeys and the Arrows of this world. Presumably they've got the most sophisticated systems. You know, for being able to see what availability is there. But there are a more expensive route.
Right. I think you're going to see both. You're going to see it from, the big box, but you're also going to have to employ those tools internally as well. So you're going to have, whether it's, estimating software, whether it's the silicon experts of the world, those type things you're going to have to do so that you have much more data real time immediately that you can present that to engineering at the front end, because it's also got to be very fast. Sometimes you can't wait for big box to get back to you in 3, 4, or 5 days. You need an answer today, so you need the software today.
Right. So you need a CalcuQuote, you need a Luminovo, you need one of these guys.
Yeah, it's a great feature. It may not work for every customer you have, but there are the ones that it affects most positively, and you need to be able to have that information. They're coming to you to give them some feedback on what their design looks like for manufacturing. Those are the tools we need to employ.
Right. Okay.
As we go.
Okay, great. Second question, with ongoing geopolitical tensions impacting trade and logistics, of course we've got these problems going around the Straits of Hormuz at the moment, but what strategies can companies adopt to safeguard production and maintain continuity across borders?
Yeah, I would say, and we're seeing it at Libra right now, where we've got large Fortune 500 customers that historically were sourcing in Asia for metal or different types of frames, but even components, and the same thing with our European customers. And reshoring's been overused, right, over the last 10, 15 years, but it's more practical now, where we're seeing more where they were sourcing in Eastern Europe from COVID time when it was open, and now they're saying, okay, we're really interested in Libra Mexico. There's less issue with tariffs, and so we're seeing more and more. We're also seeing Fortune 500s that have been building in China, and for some components for their end markets in North America, same thing. If you look at the cost or freight, the ocean freight has gone up 10-20% from last quarter. The time has gone up. We've got customers in Europe saying it's taken 60 days to get to North America, depending on the port. So it's not just everything we talked about in terms of the BOM and that front end, but it's also using tools like ChatGPT and others. Google Alert I use quite a bit, where I can target a company. But today, if you go into chat and say, tell me the freight from here to here, it's instant. And that's, Arrow and Silicon Expert and all those tools are great for that part of it, but you can't ignore these other things about metal, which, that's not their core business, or logistics cost, or even tariffs. And a lot of small manufacturers on tariffs, they're struggling. And not everybody's got tariff expertise in-house. So, for those companies, I strongly recommend seeking out tariff consultants. It's worth every penny to help them navigate.
Right.
Yeah, and it's also almost been a relearning of the entire supply chain with the way things have changed, because channels and options that weren't even in the ballpark 2 years ago are now viable options, and they're more competitive with the avenues that you are traditionally going to now because of tariff changes or shipping changes or whatever it might be. So you've got to just take a step back and relook at the entire market and make sure that you're going down the right path.
Right. So it's the net result of all these disruptions, meaning that obviously just in time is long gone, but I mean, are you having to carry much heavier inventory? To sort of try and compensate for some of these issues? Yeah,
at Libra we are. Inventory is up a little bit, but it's also working with the customer that are still in this older pattern of, I'm okay with a 90-day purchase order or a 6-month forecast window. And I think all of our companies are experiencing the same thing. It's a daily conversation with our PMs and the customer supply chain people going, you're talking about the ramp, so we do semi-cap. And it's ramping. We do aerospace and defense. It's been ramping. And so they all say yes, but then internally the OEMs are struggling at times with their business units to open that window. So it's real important to keep that conversation. We cannot let up on it, that you've got to extend the window. And that also gets back to risk buys, right? So, if there's 20 or 5 or 10, whatever long lead items on a BOM, to be able to work a program, work it into the contractor, at least a letter of intent for safety stock.
Yep.
Let us go buy a year's worth, because if we don't, it's going to shut you down as you move your forecast and your order book in and out.
Right.
I also think that you're seeing the effect of the military, the defense is going up, but the technology in the defense is changing.
Yes.
So the type of products that we would historically provide to them is changing, and now it's smaller, faster, quicker turn. They have more flexibility in the defense. Talking a lot about the AI, so you also have that effect as well out in the supply chain. So you have to look further ahead. AI and all the technology that it's gobbling up in the electronic components is sneaking up behind and taking everything that we need out there that's available, because they're putting up these massive AI, server areas,
Well,
and et cetera.
You're right, and a lot, and also the stuff that's going up into space as well, and that's going up
Absolutely.
into a different environment, which is its own challenges.
Yeah, we're going to continue to push. What we're asking for from a lot of our customers is you need to forecast the year, and then we'll work with you on a quarterly basis, but we've got to secure for a year to be able to respond as fast as they need it.
Right. Interesting. Okay, environmental regulations and ESG pressures are increasingly shaping supply chains. How can manufacturers balance compliance with sustainability goals while avoiding production delays? Now, if you came to this show last year or the year before that, everybody was talking ESG and sustainability. Now, nowadays, it's moved down the pecking order, shall we say? What's your view on it? Let's start with you, Michael.
I think that it's kind of changed because of the environment that's changed out there. I don't think it's as heightened as it was. I know that in some parts of the country it is. I think what we see, at least from the products and things that we do for our customers, it's kind of taken a second shelf in a way.
Yeah, I think you'd all agree with that.
Yeah, we see the same thing at Libra. Our company year in, year out, do the right things in our local communities on sustainability and in the environment. And I would agree with Michael, it's less of an issue. I think the pivot is more, especially with aerospace and defense, it's more about compliance, right? With CMMC, the deadline with the U.S. government for cybersecurity, and more is being put on all of us, especially any one of us. We're all doing aerospace and defense business, and once you thought you had to work with the primes and Department of War, a couple of years ago, now there's these other flow downs. So to me, that's the shift. I think we're all going to continue to be good stewards of the environment, of our employees and social, but it's now this compliance piece, because it's taken us to this next phase.
Yeah, and it's still just as important to all of us, but we're taking that step back and figuring out how we can do it in other ways. Like for us, last year we just completed a major solar installation, so that our factory is running now 91% on solar power as opposed to traditional electric. So we're still looking for those kind of avenues to really get in and make a difference, even though the supply chain really isn't going to be the way to go, at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. I think with the challenges, all these challenges that are out there, you've got to prioritize your goals. So are traditional approaches like buffer stocks and multi-sourcing still effective, or are more sophisticated predictive analytics and real-time supply chain visibility tools becoming essential? I think we've pretty much answered that already. I think we all agree that we need to have one of these partners alongside us. So we'll skip that question, and I'll move on to how important is building strategic partnerships with suppliers, logistic providers, and even competitors to improve supply chain agility and mitigate disruptions.
Yeah, it's critically important. Especially a company our size, we're not the big giants out there.
Right.
But we still try to form those relationships, and we try to pull our purchasing power and give it to, give our suppliers reason to, give us some priority.
Right.
Even though, like I said, we're not out there buying the millions and millions of components, but we've got a good a good amount of purchasing power, and we want to make sure that we're working with a good supplier that's going to respect that and give us some consideration for it. So in response, we're helping them by, like I said, pulling our purchasing power and sending more to less suppliers as opposed to spreading it out as we have done in the past.
Okay. I mean, Don, do you do any work, lay off any work with competitors or?
Yeah, it's a great question. We do. We actually have 4 large competitors that we don't really compete head to head, especially in our mid-tier size of our companies, but really good partnerships. There's things that we do that they don't, particularly in precision machining and sheet metal bending and fabrication. In fact, we've started with one of our larger customers to partner with them to leverage their spend and our spend together on metal to drive better lead times and better costing. So it's an interesting time. We would have never seen this 5 or 10 years ago. And then, with regard to the semi-cap business, the equipment's so sophisticated, right? We're seeing where we have mutual customers, the same top 3 semi-cap customers, and we work well together. You take this piece, I'll take that piece, and the end customer knows. We're, some times they put us together,
right?
And it's really a whole nother revolution of, we're all at different levels in terms of the contract manufacturing industry, but looking for those partnerships to, especially get your spend up or a consortium type situation to leverage it. It's the way to go. We see this in medical, we see in other industries where there's been these partnerships in the United States, but our industry is finally moving in that direction.
Yeah, I think all these disruptions and things we've had in the recent few years, I mean, has forced us into this. I mean, we have to get more creative about the way that we we fulfill these projects. What do you do, Michael?
We see the same. We're bringing the level of technology internally in our building up to a level to where we can partner with significantly larger EMS companies. We are starting to open up the lines of communication with other companies that are your same size, but geographically in a different location. We're seeing a lot of that partnering. You're seeing a lot with, you have such as a Raytheon or something of that nature you're doing work for. A lot of other CMs are doing the work for. There's opportunities for you guys to work together to make sure that the supply chain stays up and that the customer is satisfied. We're doing a lot for a lot of the big box EMS companies, Jabil, Benchmark, those types. So you're seeing it out there, and I think that you have to open up opportunity to not be constantly viewing each other as the direct competitor, but have that communication not only from supply chain, but also just from the service aspect as they go up. And you're not there to hurt each other, you're there to help each other as you go through. Inventories and such of that nature, you have to carry more now. I know that we carry significantly more. We do it by customer, so it also helps them, so they know they're secure in it, but you have to bring more inventory to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, gentlemen, I think that's been a great debate. I want to thank you for coming in today. That's Don McCormick from Libra in the middle, and Michael Leadham from Semikinetics, and of course Rob Ogilvie from ICTC.
Thanks, Trevor.
There you go.
Thank you
very much for joining us, and thank you to our audience for watching today.